Hello, Chairman.
Yes, yes. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Apple as a company was born from the meeting of two things, the humanities and technology. But, Chairman, what you're talking about isn't just simply adding those two things together. Rather, is it correct to understand that Atomy's business model of network marketing, combined with a philosophical element, has been reborn from a management perspective?
I was able to clearly and thoroughly understand that particular concept by carefully observing the ways in which God works in the world around us, paying close attention to the details, and then thoughtfully organizing and reflecting on the idea in my mind to gain a deeper understanding. At Atomy, we talk about absolute quality and absolute price. In fact, these two things generally don't go together very well. To sell a product of absolute quality at an absolute price, trying to bring these two important concepts together, whatever differences or opposing ideas they may represent, requires an enormous amount of effort, dedication, and persistence. But if you look at how God works throughout history and in many religious teachings, you will see that God is often called a God of justice, someone who always seeks fairness and righteousness in every situation. That's what people say. Yes. God has this sense of justice, but on the other hand, he also possesses mercy and love. So in fact, these two qualities cannot really, truly, and completely coexist together. But God establishes both justice and mercy at the same time, and for that, what is needed is truly and uniquely God's work. God working passionately and purposefully. If he were to establish only justice, that would be simple, and if he were to establish only mercy, that would also be easy. But to combine the two, it requires something internal from God. Something deep within him, something profound.
Listening to what you said, it seems that watercolor painting is almost perfectionistic, because if you make a mistake, you have to throw it away. On the other hand, with oil painting, you can keep layering and correcting, so mistakes are allowed. So is it correct for us to understand that your management style is expressed not as a watercolor approach, but as an oil painting approach?
That's true. Usually when we talk about running a venture business, we say things like, take bold risks. Don't be afraid of failure. These are the kinds of things we say. And in some ways, I agree with that. Most people say that gaining experience from failure is better than being so afraid that you can't do anything at all. But I personally think that you shouldn't fail. Because first of all, failure can become a habit. Second, failure is extremely painful. And there are almost no social safety nets or systems in place to help you recover after failing. In our society today, and especially in Korean society, once you fall down or make a mistake, it's almost impossible to truly get back up again.
Yes.
That's why I want to say that you shouldn't fail. I myself, after working as a salaried employee for 17 years, started an online department store, but after running it for about 3 years, it went under. I failed. I became a credit delinquent. And once I fell into that pit, getting out of it was so difficult that I think it's almost a miracle I managed to escape. It's a situation where you have to pay an enormous price just to get out. That's why you need to prepare thoroughly, and if you think you might fail, don't even start. Prepare even more. Prepare to the point where you won't fail. That's what I want to tell people.
Then, can we see Atomy itself as a space where people can experiment and train without experiencing such failures, so they don't end up failing like that?
Within Atomy, even if you fail, no one really says much about it. In fact, we encourage people to be brave and just go for it within Atomy. So, as long as it doesn't threaten the very existence of the company, those kinds of failures are tolerated. But if it's a failure that could seriously damage or destroy the company, that's not acceptable.
Of course, that's only natural. Yes.
The same principle applies in most workplaces. Some employees say things like this. Now try to make this really well. Then they say, Chairman, if we try to do it that way, we won't be able to finish it within this time frame. The season will have already passed. Is that still okay? Things like that. And if we do it that way, it's going to cost a huge amount of money. That's what they say. So it's not about satisfying both doing a good job and the cost required to do it well at the same time. Whenever you do something well, these costs come with it. At times like that, what I do is say, come here for a second. Then, for an hour or two, I take the time to carefully and thoroughly explain to them in detail about what work really means, what it truly represents.
Yes.
Right. Anyone can make something well, if they spend a lot of money and a lot of time on it. But usually, if you think about it, there are even people who spend a lot of time and money and still can't do a good job. So compared to them, at least I'm doing something, right? Isn't that something to be proud of? They approach me with this kind of attitude and these kinds of words. But in my view, companies or individuals who spend a lot of time and money but still fail to produce good quality no longer exist in the market. They've already gone out of business and disappeared. So why should I feel proud just because I did better than them? I mean, there are plenty of fools and idiots out there. So is it really something to be proud of, that even if I spent time and money, I at least managed to do a decent job? That's what people take pride in. That's nothing to be proud of. Because the companies that exist today are already doing that as a basic requirement. The companies that couldn't do that have already gone out of business and disappeared. So now, we're competing with the companies that are still around, and if we want to beat them in the competition, we have to be outstanding. So what does it mean to be outstanding? There's nothing else to it. It's about producing quality properly, but doing it in less time and at lower cost. And that's what the job is. Your effort should be focused on how much you can reduce those things. If you just put in the same amount and end up with something similar to your competitors, that's not real work. You still haven't established a clear concept of what work actually is. So usually when you draw a graph, you put quality on the y-axis and cost and time on the x-axis. Then it looks like this, right? But below this line, nothing exists. Most of the time, things are scattered along this line. But the thing is, because most companies are clustered here, this area is a fiercely competitive red ocean. If you stay here, you have to fight tooth and nail. So, if you want to become so outstanding that you don't even need to compete, the key is how much you can bend this line toward the y-axis, how close you can get it. That is the effort, the hard work of the person doing the job. It's important to instill this concept.
Yes, I understand.